Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody. A Sunday edition of Football 24/7. Eagles just wrapped up practice number 11. Joined now by John McMullen, live from the NovaCare Complex. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Sunday?
Doing well. Back on the practice field, first time since the preseason game, and right away, almost up to New England and Foxborough for the lone joint practice. So a little bit of in-between time for the Eagles.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Practice number 11, as you mentioned, first time, and then what's their schedule now? They're off tomorrow, and then Tuesday is the joint practice, and that will be the last coverage of the week for you guys reporters, right?
Yeah, that'll be the last practice. Obviously, they have the preseason game on Thursday night, and then they're back Saturday here at the NovaCare Complex. So this will be the last time they'll have an open practice at the NovaCare Complex until this upcoming Saturday.
So you're going to talk about the practice today down at camp. Going to preview a little bit of the upcoming week. Going to talk about the Eagles just signed a safety this morning, Caden Stearns, former Bronco player who played with Vic Fangio in Denver. So the Eagles picked him up as a safety. Me and Johnny Mac will talk about him, and then we'll get our Johnny Mac's final 2 days removed take on what he saw in the preseason game. So we'll do all that on this edition of Football 24/7. John, let's start with the new signing this morning before we get into practice today. Caden Stearns, John, does he have a chance to make this football team? What's your projection for what he might be coming into 2024?
Yeah, I think, and I asked Vic about him this morning because, as you mentioned, Vic's last year in Denver was the year that they drafted Caden Stearns as a fifth-round pick. So he's got a history with him, liked him coming out of college. So, but he acknowledged, I think he's played 5 games over the past 2 seasons. So and he just failed a physical for Carolina, which actually claimed him on waivers. And Carolina obviously had the number 1 waiver priority. So, people think this kid can play. He's got some skills, but he's got a lot of injury problems. And Vic essentially said, we have to see where he is physically. I was told there's going to be a ramp up period. He's not out. He was out there today. He's not practicing. He's got a compression sleeve on his right leg. So there's going to be a ramp up period, at least a week before he can get on the practice field. And we'll see. But this is more when you talk about the depth of safety. And I know a lot of people are concerned about it. And the Justin Simmons talk will not end until he signs somewhere else. But unless the Eagles, somebody's injured, by somebody I mean CJ or Reed Blankenship, they're not going to be looking for a starting safety. They have been looking for a backup safety, and that's where Caden Stearns could potentially fit in if he can prove he's healthy. And then, I'll tell you this. I said it, and Zander, I said it from almost day one. The longer you go with James Bradbury, the more Vic Fangio is going to like him, and it seems to be exactly unfolding that way. So I think everybody dismisses James Bradbury, and understandably so, because it seemed like the Eagles were moving on. He could be a backup safety. Vic would seem to enjoy it. So I don't think they're as bad off on that position as some people do, because Sidney Brown's going to come back early in the season as well. So, but we'll see. Another talented body that's familiar with Vic Fangio. If he's healthy, maybe that can help the Eagles.
Yeah, we'll see what he ends up doing. Sounds like it'll be more of a depth piece. John, has he passed the physical here? I know he just failed it in Carolina after being picked up on waivers. Any news on the physical here? Did he pass that? You might have said
Well,
that.
he signed, yeah. So from the Eagles' perspective, they signed him. It wasn't, this is not a claiming situation.
Gotcha.
He's part of the organization. So they're content to wait until they feel he's ready to go. Now, obviously, it's going to be for a minimum salary deal, so it's not going to be difficult to move on if you have to move on. But he's part of the organization for now.
Yeah, so we'll see what they end up doing there. John, let's move into practice today. We'll dive into offense, defense, some of the other things that went on, who stood out. But overall, what are your takeaways from day number 11 at the NovaCare Complex?
Yeah, a bit of with that joint practice upcoming with New England, a bit of a lighter pace, not the green practice, another yellow practice, understanding what's coming. So a bit of a laid back day, but there were some interesting tweaks as there always are. Um, there was a competitive period to end practice where a bunch of young players were tested against each other. With the entire team watching, and that's the first time they've done that this year. There was a hurry up session where the first team offense was out there, and Vic would rotate the first team's defense, second team defense, third team defense per rep, which was interesting. I've never seen before. They spent a lot of time working on fundamentals and tackling drills early in the practice, more focused on that. Bunch of pre-snap penalties today, which kind of marred the day for the offense, at least somewhat. And I'm sure that will be something that Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni are not happy with because for all the talk about the motion and all that stuff, if you start piling up those pre-snap penalties, people are going to get very tired of that quickly. There were at least 5 of them today, so it was bad from that perspective. And hopefully they can get that fixed pretty quickly. And then I would say the highlight was a series of one-on-one drills between Devontae Smith and Quinyon Mitchell, where Devontae kind of dusted him on the first rep, and then they matched up 2 more times, and Quinyon bounced back and had Devontae Smith in his hip pocket on 2 different reps, which is not easy to do. So that's a positive for the rookie, and a little bit of a scare too with Quinyon Mitchell. Was guarding Dallas Goddard in the slot, and Dallas made a catch on the sideline, and he left practice for a small period, was testing his right leg with a trainer on the side field, but he was clear, got his helmet, finished the practice. So a little bit of a scare, but he was able to come back and finish things.
So a lot happened on Quinyon Mitchell today. Good to hear, though. He stuck with Devontae Smith, 2 straight reps after getting beat on the first one. So, Devontae Smith, Quinyon Mitchell continuing to show that upside potential and maybe the reason he was drafted with our first overall pick. John, you mentioned an injury to not an injury, but he got banged up a little bit. You spoke about Quinyon already. Any other injury updates coming out of camp, potentially on C.J. Gardner-Johnson? I think Calcaterra missed practice today. Oren Burks continues to be out. Any other injury updates for this football team?
Yeah, Calcaterra and Alberto were both added, so 2 at the tight end position, which could be a concern just from a rep standpoint, but I'm told neither is that serious. Was a shoulder for Grant Calcaterra. Albert was abdomen listed, and they were both out there watching the practice, so can't be too serious when they let the players out there. CJ remained out. He's dealing with a bit of a shoulder, but you wouldn't know it from the trash he talks from the sideline. So he's out there watching practice, and he's very engaged. And the other guys have been on the sidelines, Oren Burks, guys like that. A couple improvements. I should mention Patrick Johnson, who essentially won the game in Baltimore with that strip sack. He was limited with a lower leg injury, but he did practice a little bit. And Mekhi Gardner was back in a limited fashion, at least. Brandon Smith was back, in a limited fashion. So a couple additions, but overall, if you think what happened to him last year in Baltimore with Zach McPherson, Sean Bradley, to come out of that game with a couple slight injuries is good news, and probably much better news than even winning the football game late.
Yeah, good stuff, John. We're going to get into the battles of camp and kind of monitor each one of those. We talked about the signing. Let's go to that right guard battle that's continued to develop all through camp. Who got the nod today at the first team, and what did you see from the right guards today?
Yeah, it's Mekhi Becton, and it's looking like Mekhi's going to win that job, to be honest. I mean, Landon Dickerson was talking today almost like he's won the job. By the way, Mekhi threw up again today. um, too much eggs and bacon this morning, too close to practice is what Mekhi, but he laughs about it because he has a history of doing that. And it's not tremendously hot today, but as compared to what it has been, but it still remains very, very humid. So it was still difficult from that perspective. But Mekhi is seizing control of that job. I think it's pretty clear. I think more on the defensive side of the ball. Again, Devin White started with Zach Bond after, the guys behind him, Nakobe, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren, all played really well in Baltimore. They still started, but Nakobe's getting more first-team reps. Trotter's getting more first-team reps, and it's mainly those two, but Ben gets a few as well. And they're trying all different kinds of duos. So that remains up in the air, and betting favorite for me at this point would be Devin White and Nakobe week one, but we'll see how that shakes out. Right corner, Rogers still the leader, but Ringo's still getting some first team reps. And don't forget about Quinyon, because if Cooper DeJean, Saturday would be 3 weeks. This upcoming Saturday, when the Eagles would return from New England and the game and be on the practice field. If he's on the practice field, I think things start to change pretty quickly. And, I think they see Quinyon Mitchell and his ability. And Vic talked about it a little bit today before practice. It's abundantly clear that that's where he's going to land on this defense, right corner, right outside corner. And I think we're going to get to that point very quickly once Cooper DeJean gets back in the mix.
Yeah, good stuff there. You hit on most of the battles there. How is, by the way, just going back real quick to the right guard, I know you said Mekhi Becton has the lead. From an objective analysis standpoint, John, how does he look? Does he look like he's going to be a good right guard for this team? Is he going to, live up to the expectation of a continual top 5 offensive line that this team's had for a long time? Does he look like, he's going to be good at that position?
Well, I don't think he's played enough. I mean, he got a few reps. Tyler played a lot in Baltimore, second team. And by the way, the second team offensive line was really good, especially, when creating running lanes and things of that nature. And even pass protection, they held up pretty well. So, we haven't seen him very much. And I have concerns over somebody that big playing right guard, and more from not the weight standpoint as the size, 6'8", or close to it. And,
Right.
you have these defensive tackles that know how to use leverage and low man wins and all that stuff. It's kind of tough for Mekhi Becton to get his pads down to that level where it's not as big a deal outside, and that's why he's a tackle to begin with. So I'm not sold on it, but I think the Eagles seem to be sold on it. And I think it stems from his talent, and sometimes it comes down to, while Vic says on defense, get your best 3 on the field at corner, maybe Jeff Stoutland is saying get your best five on the field, and we'll see. You look at the U.S. Olympic basketball team. They learned the last time they lost in Olympics. It's been a while now, but they learned the rest of the world is catching up, and you better build a team. I don't think that mentality of give me our best five offensive linemen, get them out there, or give me our best three corners, get them out there, as opposed to getting the fits in the right place. But I think it'll be fine at corner because you have the obvious answer coming in Cooper DeJean. But on the offensive line, it's not as obvious because Makai's a natural tackle, and so is Tyler Steen, by the way. So, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. But when you have Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, it's you got 80% of a really good offensive line, and you're probably going to be able to get away with average play at right guard.
I think it's safe to say that those guys take a little bit of the pressure off, right, Johnny Mac, when you have four guys of that caliber, all pro caliber players, when you're talking about Mailata, Lane Johnson, Dickerson, and not Jurgens yet, but he obviously looks good so far. John, let's talk wide receiver 3. It's been ramping up a little bit, that position, John. All in-house guys. Johnny Wilson's been making his name known a little bit more. Britton Covey is getting some reps. What did you see from the wide receiver today at the wide receiver 3 position?
Yeah, it's funny. Johnny Wilson, to me, didn't have a good day. And I think you're going to see some people say he had a good day. And I think they missed. There were 2 different receptions where everybody thought he caught the ball. And all of a sudden, I was focused on Michael Clay, who was sort of playing referee, who, called them both incomplete and was doing the bobbling motion. So he evidently bobbled the football as he went to the ground, and they were ruled incompletions. Now, he did the final play of practice. He did have a nice bounce back. It was, as I told you, they had this one-on-one session testing some of the younger players. Well, the last play was Johnny Wilson against Quinyon Mitchell. Now, typically you would think that would lead Mitchell. He beat him off the line of scrimmage, and he pretty much just used that big body, 6'6" body, to shield him away from the ball. And Will Greer, of all people, threw a nice go route, and he caught it for a big play against Quinyon Mitchell. So that was a positive. But in the middle of practice, he got the football, should have made the catch, was bobbling it as it went to the ground. And that's the kind of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. Covey's been amazing. And the thing about Covey, we talk about it a lot. The Eagles slot corners can't cover him. But he's limited to that work. I don't know why the Eagles have a problem with it, but they seem to have a problem with it. He's not going to be versatile, be able to play X or play Z, but he can play the slot. And to me, he looks like their best third receiver. But from Kellen Moore's perspective, he'd prefer a more well-rounded player. So when he wants Devontae Smith in the slot, they can play outside, or he wants A.J. Brown in the slot. And I don't know if the Eagles are going to default to Britton Covey, but he's clearly been their best number 3 receiver.
John, let's run through some players that the fans look for an update on every day. Let's start with QB1, Jalen Hurts. What did you see from Jalen Hurts today at practice?
It's solid camp. There are days when he's been just off the charts. It wasn't one of those days, but wasn't a lot. I'm starting to get concerned about the Eagles. And Kellen Moore was asked about this after practice about, their longest pass play in Baltimore was 11 yards. Now, the big playmakers weren't on the field. But I'm starting to get concerned that this is going to be a dink and dunk offense, which I hope that's not the case. But wasn't a lot of downfield stuff other than, one-on-ones, individual stuff like that, like the play I talked about with Wilson and Quinion late in the practice. There was a situational red zone drill. Got the ball at the 8-yard line, 2 seconds left. You're down 5, so you got to score a touchdown. And he had a nice throw to A.J. Brown in the left corner of the end zone, but A.J. was ruled out of bounds, so the Eagles would lose that game. And the rare expletive coming from Jalen Hurts, you don't hear that very much, but he got a little bit frustrated. But he's had a very good summer overall. Nothing splashy today from the standpoint, like I said, maybe a little bit too much underneath stuff. A lot of wide receiver screens, a lot of running back swing passes screens, a lot of tight end screens, a lot of underneath stuff.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe they're overemphasizing it now so they can get it worked into the offense. We'll kind of see. I got to be honest, John, I don't hate it. You said it kind of makes you concerned that we're playing too much dink and dunk offense. I don't think it's a bad thing as long as they understand, they still are going to have to take shots and you're still going to have to move the ball downfield to beat the best teams. But, I don't view it as a bad thing.
I'm concerned that just what they're correcting.
Right, makes sense. Don't take away what worked for the just to get dink and dunking into the offense, but take it when it's given to you. Yeah,
exactly. And he didn't even play in Baltimore, so that was Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee, and even when you're talking about third string against third string and fourth string, but Tanner McKee is a big 6'6" kid, can really throw the football. Let him try to stretch it occasionally, but that wasn't the case. So getting at least a little bit. I'm not gonna. Concerned is probably the wrong word, but I've taken note of it, and Kellen was asked about it, and so he's probably going to be taking note of it as well.
Let's move on. We're going to stay in the offense before we get to a couple guys in the defense, and then we'll get out of here. 23 minutes in so far. I want to thank everybody for being here on the channel right now. I see a bunch of our people in the chat, John, showing out for us on a Sunday. So we appreciate all you guys being here. Make sure you smash that like button if you're enjoying the show, and it helps Jacob obviously reach more people. So we can't thank you all enough. Twiz, the J guys, see you, man. Jack Straw, what's up, buddy? Appreciate all you guys. WC13, Reggie's in here, Crowley's in here, Eagles fan. Appreciate all you guys for being in here. Johnny Mac, let's stay on that offensive side real quick, and let's talk Saquon Barkley. Just a quick update. What did you see from Saquon at day 11 of practice?
They tried one swing pass that kind of got blown up. A couple nice runs outside zone near the start of practice where there was a nice little lane for me. You could see the explosion. Obviously, you're not getting a full accounting of it where there's no live tackling, but same thing. I think he's going to be a real improvement running the football. I'm not sure how much the passing aspect is going to, I think it's going to be more of a difference-making perspective from his presence on the field. I think people have to respect him, and they will. But I'm not sure how much it's going to impact on the stat sheet on a week-to-week basis.
Got it. Let's move on. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Talk about a couple of our favorite players over there that we need the updates on every day. Bryce Huff. We'll go to him first. John, what did you see from Bryce Huff today? Can you give me something, John? Can you give me anything? A sliver of positivity on Bryce Huff. What did you think?
Well, I'm not worried about Bryce Huff, but no, I can't give you anything. I did see him. I did see him out in a flat defender again. I think that, hopefully it's just practice. Hopefully he's using that. a little bit more in practice than he's going to use it in games. But he seems to get in the way a little bit. I would say, he looks better in coverage than Hassan used to, which surprises me a little bit because Hassan actually played it a bunch in Arizona early
I'm
in his
telling you,
career.
John, they're going to ask him to do it more than they asked Hassan to do it. I think it's part of why they signed the guy. I know you said he's paid to get after the quarterback, which he is. Obviously, that's where his bread is buttered. But I think they're going to have him do all those other things.
I
He's
don't
going to
think
be able
that's
to
the
need to
case,
do it.
but I hope it's not the case because if it is the case, I'll be ripping Vic Fangio, and I love Vic. I love Vic. He had another tour de force today at his press conference. Uh, you know, validate, and I think because Vic validates me. I've been talking so many years about nickel and corner being different positions, and Vic just shut two different reporters down trying to. Well, they're both corner, and he's like, no, they're different positions. It completely shut them down. So well
So
done, Vic.
another little vindication for our man Johnny Mack,
Yeah.
who's always one step ahead of 99% of reporters that cover this entire league. So make sure you guys are tuned in and liking the show for our man John
Well, I
McMullen.
didn't know that. I just love when Vic does that. Vic
Well,
just
no, but I know, but
wow.
you are ahead of many people, and I appreciate obviously you being here on JAKIB Sports. John, one other guy I want to ask on the defensive side of the ball. I saw some reports come out about Jalen Carter looking pretty good today. He continues to impress. What did you see from Jalen Carter today at practice?
Yeah, I mean Jalen's I don't want to say he's an AJ level, but Jalen's the type of player who's always going to he's not going to have many bad practices.
Yeah, he's just that good at football.
Yeah, he's just that much more physically gifted than everybody else. But we talked about Mekhi Becton earlier. They've had some good battles, and when Mekhi can get his hands on Jalen Carter because he's so powerful, he can do some things. But Jalen's very very difficult to block, and you saw it last year. You'll see it again this year, and to me, the only question is, can he can he ramp up to the Fletcher Cox number and level of snaps? And is that 50th snap in a game? Is that going to show dramatic downturn from the first 10 snaps of the game when he's got the full gas tank? To me, the only question on Jalen Carter is the conditioning
Right.
aspect.
I think he's
That's
going to
it.
get better at it. I mean, the only thing we've had to see, really, I know he came out of Georgia where they have heavy rotation, and almost how good they are at Georgia almost impacts the players negatively because they get to the NFL and they need a bigger role. But I think he's going to answer the bell. I mean, we've only had one season in the NFL. 90% of rookies need a year to acclimate their bodies. It's one of the most talked about things for rookies. So I think Jalen Carter will be all right. Speaking of Georgia players, John, let's talk Nolan Smith. What did you see from Nolan Smith today? A lot of people also have their sights set on him. I forgot to mention him.
Yeah, no, Vic was very honest about Nolan today. One of the typical, and he's talking about where he stands out and where he can get the speed rush and let the athleticism loose, and was very honest about he needs to get better at the point of attack, and that doesn't surprise people, I assume. And Nolan, I have positive from the perspective of I always talk about maybe you don't hear a lot about Bryce Huff because he's going against Lane Johnson a lot, or Jordan Mailata, and the same thing kind of holds with Nolan Smith. He doesn't do a lot when he's lined up against those guys, but the difference is Nolan gets second team reps as well. He gets some first team reps, and then he gets some second team reps, and he stands out. And that's kind of my hope with Bryce Huff against lesser players. Um, Certainly as a pass rusher. Um, you know, Vic is painfully honest, so a little bit concerned about the other stuff, but I think he's going to show improvement as a pass rusher.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. We talked about the signing. We talked about the practice. We're going to move into a quick preview of the week. Any final thoughts on the practice today, John, that you think are worth mentioning that might have stood out to you that we did not mention here on the show? Any player, whether it's a player, a play, something that people are talking about. What did we miss on practice today?
Well, I mentioned a little bit about the session to end practice. That was really, the defense went nuts when Andre Sam was able to break up a pass to Anaya Smith. And, somebody like AJ or Devontae is probably going to bring it in. And CJ was brutal. It's constructive, we'll call it constructive criticism of Anaya Smith. And then Johnny Wilson got it back for the offense on Quinyon Mitchell. So they were excited about that. The other reps were, I believe, Trevor Keegan holding up against Thomas Booker in a one-on-one pass rush, pass pro drill. And then in a blitz pickup, Ben Van Sumeren got the best of Kendall Milton. So it was a fun little competition with a bunch of young players that got the whole team fired up. So there's some example of Nick Sirianni getting the team together, getting everybody hyped up in the dog days of summer, although probably didn't work as much for Anias because I'm starting to worry about him.
Man, sounds like CJ Gardner-Johnson was ruthless to our man Anais Smith. Anais, you better turn it around, brother, or else they're going to keep coming on. So hopefully Anais can kind of turn the page. John, let's preview real quick the week. For those just checking in, by the way, we did talk about the Eagles signing Caleb Stearns this morning, safety. He's officially signed, by the way. I know he failed his physical in Carolina, but obviously went through that with the Eagles, and he is signed. He is on the roster, as John pointed out earlier in the show. So if you missed that, you can go back and watch the replay when we wrap up here and check out what John said about Caleb Stearns. I don't know.
Yeah,
how
and I
big of
should
an impact.
mention they cut Shaq Quarterman to make
Yeah,
room
boy, that was
for
that was like what,
Caleb.
5 days for Shaq Quarterman and
We
Philly?
hardly knew ye, Shaq.
Sorry, brother. Yeah,
But he was
hate to see
here
it.
in rookie camp as well as a tryout player. So, he's a guy, if you see an injury down the road, he might be
Right.
back.
Yep, they might go back to him. John, let's preview the week. I know it's a big week of joint practice this week with New England on Tuesday, and then the preseason game, I believe, is Thursday night. What's the agenda for the week for the Eagles?
Yeah, they're gonna have they're gonna be up there Tuesday for the joint practice, and obviously Wednesday the walkthrough for the game on Thursday. Friday, players' day off, and Saturday they're back at practice. So, a little bit of a respite from the NovaCare practices, but the Eagles are still going to be hard at work, preparing for New England, playing against New England. The history of Nick Sirianni is that the starters will get most of their work, certainly against the New England starters in that joint practice on Tuesday. So I wouldn't expect to see a lot of work for them, certainly offensively. And that's kind of, how I would have went against it is how ultimately the Eagles did it in Baltimore. The offense, they don't really need it. Didn't see a lot of key guys. Defense, they probably need it a little bit more, and Vic Fangio had to play at least a little bit.
Johnny Mac, good show today, man. Thanks for joining in from the NovaCare Complex. Any final thoughts on either practice today or the game? I mentioned the game on Friday. You've had now 2 days to kind of stew on that on that game. If has anything changed in Johnny Mac's eyes on the takeaway from Friday?
I did my second thought column on SI, and one of them I brought up with Kellen Moore is, the longest pass play was 11 yards. That can't continue, and I wrote it the day after the game, and then before I came to practice, obviously, and I come to practice, and they're still throwing everything underneath. So I don't know. Maybe it's an overcorrection. Maybe it changes. Obviously, you're going to want to get the football down the field to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith at some point. So I think it at some point it will be self-correcting. But it's something to keep an eye on because it has been, you know, you look at that box score and say, oof, everything's underneath, everything's underneath, everything's underneath. Kind of masked by the running game, which was really effective. All the different running backs. Maybe there's a little bit of more depth there than we thought with Kenny Gainwell having a very good camp, and Will Shipley kind of doing some nice things as a rookie. And then overall, those rookies are starting to come on a little bit in the case of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as well. You know, that linebacker battle, it's 11-0 now, Zander. So I think everybody looks at that first rep and 11 consecutive practices. It's Devin White and Zach Bond. And I think a lot of people just shut it off and say, all right, they're in the, but the rotation in the practice, I saw obviously Devin White and Zach Bond. I saw Devin White and Nakobe Dean together. I saw Nakobe Dean with Zach Bond. I saw Nakobe and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. together. I saw Devin White and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. together.
That's the combo I like right there, Devin White and Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
I think that is still less than concrete moving forward. I am sticking to my fault, especially after Baltimore. Nakobe had a very good game in Baltimore. After rewatching it, hasn't had a good camp, and he's got to certainly play better in practice. But I don't think that is over with the linebacker battle.
Johnny Mac, good stuff. Before I let you go, John, last question: who's your player of the day at 11? Practice number 11 at NovaCare.
You know, it was up and down, but I'm going to give it to Quinyon Mitchell for not only, you know, getting banged up, but coming back. And, you know, he could have left and nobody would have looked at him and said but he worked out on the side field, as I said, came back in. But anytime you can shut down Devontae Smith in one-on-ones, it isn't easy. And he did it twice. And he did it twice after getting dusted on the first one. The first one, I was like, oh, boy. And then, you know, sometimes you lose your confidence. And that's the best thing for a cornerback is, you know, you're going to get beat.
Yeah, short memory, baby.
Yeah, got to have a very short memory. And he had a very short memory. So I'm giving it to Quinyon today.
I love it, Johnny Mac. Good stuff. Good breakdown today, man. We appreciate you doing the Sunday work. Get home safely from NovaCare Complex. Johnny Mac, 8 a.m. tomorrow, right, man? No change in the schedule tomorrow, so we'll be live in the morning on Birds 365.
Live in the morning, Jeff Kerr, the lockdown Jeff Kerr. He's going to be on in his typical 8:20 spot, and he was at the game in Baltimore, so we get plenty from him there. He was at the practice today. We'll try to finagle somebody else up as well.
Got it. Johnny Mac, thanks for checking in today, man. We appreciate you doing it. I will talk to you tomorrow morning. All right, man?
All right. Thanks, Zander.
All right. See you, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac joining us on Football 24/7. A nice Sunday edition, everybody. The Philadelphia Eagles down at practice again today. So practice number 11 before the week ahead where it's going to be a joint week type of week. They got, you know, obviously no practice or maybe they have a walkthrough tomorrow. Nothing will be covered tomorrow. And then the joint practice on Tuesday with New England and then the preseason game on Thursday. So we'll have the second preseason game coming up in about 4 or 5 days. So it's, you know, they're getting done quick. And before you know it, the season will be here. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here, by the way, today. It's a Sunday afternoon. I know everybody's got a busy schedule. I know everybody's got a lot of stuff going on. We try and whenever the Eagles do something, I try and make the commitment to be here to update you as quickly and as efficiently as possible. That's part of the goal of our network. So I can't thank you all enough for being here, for giving the love. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Pretty good amount of you watching right now on the Sunday, so hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as we'll be live all season long covering this football team. And if you're liking the content enough and you want to become a member of the channel, that is greatly appreciated, and it helps our network grow. We're going to be giving away Saquon Barkley jerseys all season long to our channel members. So if you want to become a member, please do so today to support the network. We can't thank you enough. Wayne the Pain says, thanks. Thank you, brother, for being here. Abraham, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here. Jack Straw, Crowley's in here. Twiz the Jigga. Twiz, what's up, brother? Hope you're doing well on this Sunday. Mad Bird's in here. Mad, hope you're doing well, man. Niners all damn day. What's up, Nad? Hope you're doing good, man. I hope everybody's having a great Sunday. And get ready. We'll start tomorrow on a Monday with a full week of content covering you wall to wall on JAKIB Sports. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I will catch you tomorrow morning on Birds 365. See you next time, everybody.